So the first film that I worked on was titled Unexpected, of which I was given the role of production designer. The story starts with an upbeat man walking down a street while listening to music. Suddenly, he gets kidnapped by a group of masked men and has his head covered by a bag and then violently taken to a house. Once entering a room, the kidnappers remove the bag so that he can see that it was in fact a surprise birthday party. When designing the setting for the surprise shot, I drew inspiration from the film Iron Man, where Tony Stark is captured, taken hostage, and sat on a chair surrounded by terrorists. I thought this shot of the characters was very helpful for my film as it was quite similar, as it allowed for the main character to feel small and helpless while making the others, the kidnappers, seem a lot more powerful. I also took inspiration from the comedy skit titled Mafia Hit, written by Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key, which included a surprise birthday party just like mine getting shot up by a mafioso. I tried to incorporate these contrasting ideas of comedy and maturity in order to achieve an interesting visual feel with that of the masked kidnappers and the partygoers dressed in birthday party attire. This conventional idea that parties are always positive is something that I wanted to go against, similar to the skit, therefore designing the characters and setting as such. A few things went bad throughout the film. First off, the visual contrast between party and kidnapping didn't really turn out as effective as I would have liked. One of the reasons for this is because the props could be seen prior to the reveal, therefore ruining the idea of unexpected. Another problem we had was that due to no lighting equipment and filming quite late into the day, we only really relied on the sunlight to light the scene, which is not really ideal at all, as we lost the light quite quickly, therefore had to rely on post-production to make all the lighting throughout the scenes consistent. One way to solve the issues that we had was to obviously book out some proper lighting equipment, as well as doing some test shots. One piece of health and safety I did take into account when designing the production was when I had to put the birthday decorations up. To do this safely, I had a proper step-up stool to avoid any risk of hurting myself or others by falling over by having the proper equipment for decorating. The second film that I worked on was titled The Promise, of which I was given the role of director and DP. The film is about an innocent man named Laken who is questioned by a shadow detective about a crime he swears he did not commit. I had to research as many camera techniques as I could. Especially due to being a film noir relying on lighting and mise-en-scene, one piece of inspiration I had was from the film Wolf of Wall Street, which featured a discussion scene between Jordan Belfort and Mark Hanna that was filmed as J-cuts and I-cuts. I tried doing the same for my film as it allowed for the expressions of the character Laken, where I get to see his reactions in accordance to the detective. Another piece of inspiration I took was from Schindler's List during the tribute scene where Liam Neeson places a pair of roses upon Oscar Schindler's grave. We only see the shadow of his body on the grave, which I did similarly in my film. This was needed for my film, as I had Laken's face shown while hiding the detective's face. This way, we could maintain his presence while also maintaining a sense of mystery of what Laken was feeling. The Digital Filmmaking Handbook said this about lighting as well. Lighting is one of the most powerful yet subtle filmmaking tools available. Film noir classics like The Maltese Falcon are known for their creative use of light and shadow, while modern comedies often feature a bright, simple lighting style. I took this quote to mind when making my film by making sure the lighting throughout my film was mostly just a key light, highlighting the subjects and acting as a lamp within my film. I think that one thing that went well in my film was that in trying to achieve the feel of film noir, I was quite successful. Although it may have come off as typical and cliché, the lighting done by me and my team has created the effect that we were trying to go for. However, there were still quite a few things that went badly within my film. For one, I actually wasn't planning to be the DP at all. I was actually supposed to only be the director, but due to time restrictions and my first DP having other commitments, there was no shot list or storyboard to work off of, as well as the DP not familiarizing themselves with the camera in use, which was a Blackmagic pocket camera with a Canon zoom lens. Due to this, I had to take part in being the DP by coming up with shots on the spot, and also because of that, a large percentage of the shots weren't centered correctly, therefore seeming jarring because I had to focus on both directing the actors as well as using the camera. A lot of the shots also did not match well with each other due to not focusing on the 180-degree rule consistently, making it awkward to edit together. It was very difficult to both be the DP and director, and I would not take both roles at once at the same time ever again. Also, unfortunately, I did get my finger caught on the tripod as I was adjusting it. I think next time I will take into account when it comes to health and safety with heavy equipment that it's probably better to ask someone for help when adjusting the tripod or any other kind of equipment. The third film I worked on was titled The Plunge, of which I was given the role of editor. The story revolves around a metaphorical lobster, in which case was just a man in a lobster costume that's given up life on the surface world. Deciding that it wasn't for him, he decides to just run off to the beach and plunge back into the ocean. As first-time editor, I didn't really have much experience editing, therefore I had to research as much as I could in order to match previous pieces of work that I've done before. One piece of research I had to do was when making my film was that of how to do a reaction shot. One kind of reaction shot I found inspiring enough for my film was that of Jurassic Park when we first see the dinosaurs. The edit deliberately withdraws the subject and the audience of which the characters are reacting to until the end. I've incorporated this into my film by doing the same with the lobster reacting to the dead fish. I thought that this was an effective way to make the audience want to know what it was that he was looking at, therefore wanting to watch longer. I also took inspiration from Walter Murch, an Oscar-winning editor. He said this about sound, saying sound is a huge influence on people's attention. With this in mind, I edited the sound in such a way where the ambience of the surrounding made the audience feel like they were actually there. This was done with a lot of room tone and different sound effects I found online. This was important as the film was focused around sound. Again, due to not having a lot of editing experience, I spent a lot of time learning how to use Adobe Premiere through YouTube videos like that of Crisco Art, as well as using online forums. There was quite a few things that went well with the production of this film. For one, due to not being the only editor and having another, I was able to edit the first assembly while the editor that worked with me did the cleanup. This allowed me to focus on the assembly more, which was helpful as it allowed me to have little fatigue on my part, and also helpful because we only had 2 days until we had to hand it in. I think with what I had to work with, which unfortunately wasn't a lot, I managed to have the film make sense. I was worried that it wouldn't due to the obvious lobster being a man in a lobster costume. However, by showing my film to those who were watching it for the first time, it made sense according to their feedback. There were still a few things that went badly. For one, a lot of the files were corrupted. In using a previous version of Adobe Premiere to the other editor who was using a more current version of it, a lot of the files did not match and it took unnecessary time to fix. I think this could have just simply been solved if we were all using the same version of Premiere and we had better communication between ourselves. I also feel like I really didn't give a lot of information or what I could have needed to my film crew on the days of the shoots. I feel like if I were to discuss what may work and what may not work in the edit, may have led to a better film. Again, this probably would have been better for me as this was my first time editing, so doing things during production instead of post-production may have proved easier and more effective and more efficient on my part and their part. The fourth and final film I worked on was called Toast, of which I was given the role of sound. This film is about a man simply making a piece of toast, but once the toast is stuck inside the toaster, he sticks his knife in, trying to lodge it out. Electrocuted, he is sent back in time to the year 1893, where the first toaster was being invented. The scientist making it reveals that he was in fact trying to make a time machine and not a toaster. When doing the sound for this film, there wasn't much to go for inspiration, due to not actually having the proper equipment, of which I'll discuss later. However, I still prepared for my role by familiarizing myself with the equipment, of which was the Tascam DR100 Mark II, of which I looked up manuals online as well as using the Tascam and familiarizing myself with it a few hours before the shoot. In terms of what went well, just getting the recording I needed was very much quite simple. However, we only decided to use the Tascam as when accessing the kit store, there were no available boom mics or proper recording equipment. Therefore, I had to opt to lay on the ground or squat during some scenes to record the sound with the Tascam to avoid being in the shot. This obviously was not preferable as so much of the sound recorded was not heard that well due to being so far away from the subject, therefore resulting in having to ADR or just get sample audio online for the final edit. This could have been resolved by simply accessing SciCell as early as possible to get the equipment we needed. Another issue I had with using the Tascam is that it would play back through reverse or slow motion at times, of which we did not know why. I think if I were to have the manual with me throughout, it could have been fixed much more faster, therefore saving on time. Another issue we had was that I actually was the main actor, therefore I only recorded a small portion of the film that I was supposed to do sound in. I feel like again, if we were more organized and got an actual actor, I could have helped more with the sound, therefore resulting in actual usable audio rather than just ADRing or using sample audio. For health and safety, some health and safety precautions were taken into consideration, especially when I was recording on the ground. For one, we rehearsed those scenes quite often with me sitting on the floor so that the actor and other cast members would not have to step on me on the actual shoot or hit me during the operation. And so that's it for all my films that I will be discussing today. Thank you.